the first colony, the founding of Petah Tikva, told by the mayor of Netanya, Oved Ben Ami. As you hear the recording, listen particularly for the following. 1. How did Yehoshua, Samper, get to Jerusalem? 2. Why did the Jews of Jerusalem discourage him? 3. Why did the Greek doctor discourage him?
Even before I left Plonsk, I'm speaking to in comes from Plonsk. I knew who were the first people who had this idea to rebuild the country. And I was amazed. I couldn't understand how did they, in the 19th century, how could I think about building a Jewish state, in starting to build a state? In 1878, came two Jews from Hungary, and one Jew from Jerusalem, and they built for the first time a Jewish village in the country.
These are the words of David Ben-Gurion. He is talking about the beginnings of the great adventure of the Jewish people, the re-establishment of a Jewish state in the land of Israel. He is talking about Petah Tikva. Petah Tikva was the first Jewish agricultural colony established in the land of Israel in modern times. It was founded in 1878 by a young man from Hungary and two men from Jerusalem, one of whom was also a Hungarian Jew. Because the malaria killed so many of its first settlers, Petah Tikva had to be abandoned for a while. It was resettled in 1882 and served as an inspiration for the Jewish agricultural settlements that followed. The founders of Petah Tikva are all dead now, but on January 3rd, 1970, Oved Ben Ami, a son of an early settler who himself later founded and became the mayor of the city of Netanya, told us the story of Petah Tikva, to which his father brought his mother as a young bride, where he himself was born, and where, as a young boy, he had heard about Petah Tikva's beginnings from its own pioneers while they were still alive. Here is Mayor Oved Ben Ami.
My family came from Russia. My mother arrived as a girl of 16 with the Biloyim, where all her family, the Tzalelichin, started to build the second colony settlement, Rishon LeZion, the first of Zion, where she met my father, who flew as a first refugee from old Austria, where he saw as a young boy how his father was slaughtered by peasants in the forest that he used to work. And when he came to Palestine then, he was refused to be entered in Jaffa, as he did not have the red paper that was at the time the permit of the Turkish government to permit Jews entry to Palestine. So he was sent to Cyprus, and he actually was the first Jewish refugee that has been sent from the shores, from the hopes of a Jew, to Cyprus, where he was detained for some weeks, and then again he found a possibility to enter into Palestine, the home of his hopes, that he looked for a refuge. And in Rishon LeZion he met my mother, and both went to settle and build their home in Petah Tikva. And where I was born 64 years ago. In Petah Tikva, I got my first education, my first love to Eretz Israel with the songs of my mother, I soak from her milk the dedication to build and to help to build our country for the Jewish people. The story of Petah Tikva began 91 years ago when a young man by the name Yehoshua Stamper, 16 years old, left his family in Budapest, Hungary, where he saw that there is no hope for the Jews to live together with the Gentiles. His family, a very Orthodox Jewish family, resented their young son living and going to a place, distracted, deserted place, the land of Israel. But he was stubborn and decided, without the blessing of his parents, to go because he felt and he heard the voice of prophets, of the Jewish prophets, calling him, go to the land of your forefathers. And he went from Budapest barefooted all the way to Turkey, the Balkans, Syria, and arrived in Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, he found a few dozens of Jews, all Jews, living within the walls of the old city, and with sun rays coming to the Wailing Wall, praying and tearing and waiting for the Redeemer. Yehoshua Stamper said to them, it's time that we should stop to cry on the destruction of the temple. We have to start and till the land and get out our bread from the land of our forefathers. And that will bring nearer the days of the Messiah, the Redeemer. And so he found two colleagues, young colleagues, one a Jerusalem-born young man by the name Yoel Moshe Salomon, and a young man, also an Hungarian, that came from London, and he was a man with small finances. And these three young Jews went around looking for a piece of land. They started in Jericho, and there rich Arab families prevented them to purchase land. They went from Jericho to the city of Ramleh, and there also they found the same difficulties. So they came to the tiny village on the sea called Jaffa. Jaffa, a biblical city. And in Jaffa they found an Arab agent who told them, I know a place. It's not far from here, only 8 miles. Come with me and I will show you the place where you can probably buy a piece of land. Riding on donkey's back, together with a Greek physician, an expert on climate, they went one morning in the month of Ab, August, east of Jaffa, till they reached a place called Melebbes. Melebbes was a tiny, small Arab village deserted from its inhabitants. There they found marches of swamps, water and sky. For hours they stood on a hillock and looked around. After 2 or 3 hours, Joshua Stamper asked their expert, the physician, "What do you think about this place?" The Greek expert replied, "Can't you see, for 3 hours I was watching and looking around, and not a living bird flies over this scarce place. How can you expect that in a place where is infected with malaria, that you can walk, that you can raise children? I do not advise you, because you will die and all your hopes will be in vain." When Joshua Stamper heard this verdict, he kneeled and he kissed the earth, the soil, and he said, "Now I can hear and feel the fulfillment of our prophet Amos, who said, 'And I will convert the swamps, the marshes, to a gate of hope.'" A gate of hope, which means in Hebrew, Petah Tikva, the beginning of hope for the Jewish people. And he decided, here we shall start our life, here we shall start the revolution in the Jewish history. We will rebuild our ancient land. And so he did. He did with the help of his 2 colleagues, and in a few weeks they found 10 Jews that have been ready to start with them to build the first Jewish settlement after the destruction of the temple by the Romans. The same year, on the Passover night, Joshua Stamper, with the pioneers of Petah Tikva, sat together and celebrated the first Seder. And after singing the Haggadah, Joshua Stamper raised up and said, "Today we are only 10. Tomorrow we will be hundreds. And in years to come, we will be hundreds of thousands. But I can visualize and see the millions of Jews that will come and live and build again our sovereignty, our freedom, and our liberties." And that was the foundation of the State of Israel.
Now that you heard the recording, it might be a good idea to discuss it. Here are some suggested topics for discussion. 1. Yehoshua Stamper opposed his parents' wishes and went to settle in the land of Israel. Were his parents justified in refusing to let him go? Why? Was Yehoshua justified in opposing them? Why? What would you do in his place? 2. The land expert advised Yehoshua Stamper not to settle Petah Tikva. And actually, a year or so later, it was abandoned for a few years because so many got sick from malaria, and many settlers died. Was Stamper right? Why?